All right, Scott, brother, I'm so happy to have you on and joining me on this Intrinsic Podcast and this journey of life. We're both former professional athletes, baseball players, minor leaguers. I was with the White Sox and Twins out of high school. Similarly, you were also out of high school with Tampa Bay and a few other clubs, and we both fought injuries. We both fought through addiction, and we're now in recovery. And so thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story. And I look forward to our conversation here.
Yeah, Eric, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I hope that your audience gets something out of this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. So you were a 99 draft pick out of high school. Um, what I think some people don't understand from the outside looking in is the pressures that people like us face. And I think it's important to establish uh, a little bit of our early development years, some childhood components, because as we age up and spiral into adulthood, we have more responsibility. Especially we're both fathers, so we that's the ultimate responsibility. Um, and a mortgage, for example. So, um, but that affects us from childhood, right? If we don't identify and become self-aware of some of our earlier experiences. So what was it like for you um, growing up in a world where you were excelling athletically and had to make that transition and decision to go pro?
I guess the one moment that sticks out to me was I went to a New Orleans public school, and the only time that my school played the top tier athletes or the top baseball players in the city was an American Legion, and I went to a mostly African American school. I was one of the only white kids on the team, so I automatically kind of stuck out. But playing against some of the bigger names in the city, the whole reason I got scouted was because there were scouts there watching the other players. And I got lucky by even getting seen. The pressure came once I knew that people were looking at me and then considering me for even a draft pick was obviously, overwhelming. I remember one game I was pitching, and I didn't start pitching until later. Uh, was I started my windup, and you see like 19 radar guns come up behind home plate, and they know they're watching you. So the expectation to excel was there, and it turned from like going out there and just throwing to holy crap, these guys are really watching me. Um, I thought of school, and I know this is a bad way, but I thought of school of a way to get a free education. I mean, baseball is a way to get a free education. I knew I was going to get to go to college somewhere, whether it be a JUCO or a 4-year school, and then getting drafted was going to be a bonus. However, once I did get drafted, there was no decision for me. I knew my first baseman, his name was Dave Durant, gave me a great bit of advice. He said, college has been there for 200 years. It'll be there in 5 or 10 years if you don't make it to the major leagues. Like, so take your chance and go play. And I was like, you know what? That is right. So I did take the chance. I left. I remember I graduated got drafted on June 2nd. I graduated June 3rd, and I flew out June 4th. And I always think about my mom's range of emotions, for her son graduating high school, getting drafted, and then leaving home for the next 3 or 4 months. But the expectation once I left was I'm going to try to work harder than everybody else. And if my natural ability won't get that, maybe my work ethic will get me there. And that's the way I thought of it when I left.
Um, I want to touch on the minor league experience because, as we both know, man, that's a really fast life, bro. Like and both of us coming out of high school, we're entering a man's world. And so let's fast forward however many number of years it is for you, when did addiction start entering your life?
Addiction started entering my life in 2005, I would say, when I was in the Cal League. I was not only struggling with my performance on the field. Pitching in the Cal League was very, very difficult. I think the league leaders had like a 3 or 4 ERA just because the air is so thin, the ground is hard as a rock. Anything that went up in the air left the yard. And I didn't necessarily see eye to eye with my pitching coach that year. We fought a lot back and forth. He was one of those yellers, that would rather curse at you than tell you what you were doing wrong. So I found myself drinking not only to go to sleep, but drinking to forget, and hoping that would help. I was also going through a rough time. I got married very young. My wife didn't follow me there, so we were going through communication issues. We were very, very young. And then at the end of that season, Hurricane Katrina hit. And I was in California when that happened. It was to September 1st is our last game. So Katrina hit on August 29th.
And that's your hometown, right?
My hometown is New Orleans, yeah. So watching it on TV and watching the whole city go underwater at that point was very rough. And then I wasn't there. And then getting in touch with family was very, very difficult. I ended up flying from California into Tallahassee because that was the closest place that they could get me into. I met my ex-wife there at the time, and it took us about 10 days to get back into the city. But the whole time, I had to drink the whole time just to get through the day. And it was beer at that point, where it would range from 30 to 50 a day. Just to, like, it was water. I wasn't even hydrating. I was drinking water. Drinking beer is water. And started recognizing that I'm doing this as a need, not necessarily because it's hey, let's get together and drink some beer. I was drinking to numb myself of whatever was going.
Yeah. When that, and I'm in recovery as well. And when it changes, a lot of people think like, oh, they're addicted. They don't know what they're doing. And some will believe that we're having fun doing it. First of all, I knew that I shouldn't have been drinking. I was just in complete denial. But it's no fun when it gets a hold of us, when the want becomes the need and our body requires it to function. Man, it's only a matter of time. You're on the clock, we're on the clock when that happens. I mean, what's interesting is we both played in the era where there was no mental health help. There was nobody around. I mean, these coaches, like you had mentioned, you guys were fighting quite a bit. I was with the White Sox and Twins. I had a similar situations with a number of the managers, and I'm not a confrontational type of guy. For a man, I'm rather high in agreeableness. Which at its root level, it's more difficult for somebody like me to say no, which makes me in turn more susceptible to influence by others, right? And so I think like I'm happy that the professional game is taking note of this, people like us breaking within the game, because did anybody help you? Like when you were drinking like this and expected to play every day and show up and work hard and everything that a professional athlete, our body's our temple. Did you have any help whatsoever?
No, and it almost became a joke. Like Scott can drink this much, and it became like one of my buddies actually called it my sixth tool. Like I was, 5 tool, drinking is his 6th tool, and as opposed to me correcting them and saying, no, I'm doing this out of a need. I'm doing this because I'm hurting inside. I'm laughing it off, even though inside I'm dying. But the crazy part about that is there was no like EAP. There's no employee assistance program in professional baseball. Maybe there is now, but there wasn't then. And then if it was there when we weren't told about it. We weren't saying like, hey, if y'all have a problem, call this number. I just remember the FBI coming in and giving us a card and saying, like, in any state, at spring training, in any state, if you get arrested, call this number.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it was never, guys, if y'all have mental health problems, if you're dealing with a death in the family, if you're dealing with mortgage issues, if you're dealing with financial problems, call this number and we have resources to help you. It was go play.
Yeah. Not only was it go play, it was if you cry, you're weak, sleep when you're dead, and keep your damn foot off the brake pedal.
Rub
you know what I mean?
Dirt,
Really?
rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, really. That's a real thing, and the audience, the people that are not inside of our ring are judging, watching, cheering us on. They're also the first ones to smear us and shame us and make us athletes feel like just puppets. But here's the thing, we're human too, and I'm glad that people are starting, this awareness thing is starting to take a grip in society, because athletes are performers. Like I've worked in the filmmaking space for the past 15 years, and I've worked with a lot of recognizable actors and to build character, right? And athletes are no different. We're performers as well. And so on the outside, everything is great, right? But what I've learned is that we're also rather fragile and temperamental and emotional. And but yet as males, specifically us males, we're not in tune with the vulnerability side, right? So if you were to ask an athlete on the outside how they're feeling, their response is going to be much different than if you ask them inside their own home, provided you're the same trusted person, right? Because it's public versus our private life. And so those 9-10 hour bus trips or the plane rides where we're just, I would drink Seagram 7 and play cards on all those bus trips, were you guys the same way going up and down the coast?
I had to hide the Seagrams, but I admired the Seagram 7 because it was a plastic bottle and nobody could hear it.
And it was cheap.
It was cheap. And I always enjoyed the Seagram 7 because I was whiskey at that point. And it was, the coaches couldn't hear that. They wouldn't hear the clinking or anything like that. So while you were
my coaches, we would pull over, sorry to interrupt, we would pull over on the bus trip itself. We would pull over at certain bars and load up, and everybody, all the partiers, we're in our early 20s. We'd jump on the bus and it'd be a getaway day or whatever, and we'd just drink all night.
See, and with Tampa, we didn't have that. I had to hide it. Like there was no stopping or anything like that. We did drink at the hotels and stuff like that, but mostly I drinking. If we went out, everybody had fake IDs. We all went out and stuff like that, at least for the first few years, and then we actually became of age. But we got after it quite a bit from time to time, but the Seagram 7, that just triggered a memory. Just to hide it. But the handle of 175 was like $16.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And that got us going, and taking everybody's meal money. Although most people took my meal money.
Most people took my meal money too. We'd have several card games, and I always played, but I always ended up on the losing end for some reason.
Yeah. Also, another trait that when I went through addiction, I was doing, and still am doing, deep dives into psychology. Selfishly for myself first, to understand how I broke. And the common thread that a lot of high performers, whether it be, in our case, athletics, baseball, or an entrepreneur, somebody who's trying to achieve something great, we need something to run from. We need something to run to, that we all share, right? We're either in the deep end or we're dry. Were you that way? So there's impulsivity to us that way, right? Were you, which is, being impulsive is directly tied to addiction, right? No matter, and then how you define addiction is, gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, etc., food. Do you have that trait? Did you, looking back, because now we'll get into your sobriety here later, but looking back on your younger self, did you fit that mold?
I did fit that mold. When I set out to do something, I gave it my all, and I wanted to be the best at whatever I did. So if it was going out and picking up trash, I was going to do it the most effective way I possibly can and the best that I could. I was going to do what I could to stand out, that I was going to be the best at doing that. Um, the the drive and the direction is what I needed. I needed that, just like you said, I needed to go to a goal. I needed a ultimate goal. So getting into the minor leagues, my next goal was to get to the next level, and then for going forward. The addiction side of it, I can also see my transition from needing, where my goal kept getting further away from me. My goal was to not feel anything. So I went from drinking beer to drinking whiskey, to mixing it with whiskey and 7 or whiskey and water, to drinking it straight, then switching ultimately to vodka and going forward. It was the most effective way from getting from point A to point B. And that fight or flight moment in your head, you make that decision to go forward with it. I went forward with it, and there was no stopping until I got to that goal. So it completely correlates with the way that I handled everything in my life. I went from point A to point B in the most effective, fastest way I possibly could. And that was with training, with everything. If I saw something wasn't working, I would fix it. And I did it in addiction as well. I went from point A to point B the fastest, most effective way I knew. And even though it was a coping mechanism, my OCD went, if you do it this way, it's going to be more effective. And it's a crazy way of thinking. And it's your brain tricking you into thinking you need this and you want it and all of that. And I listened to it for a very long time. And it ultimately, drove me to rehab several times. It drove me to the hospital several times, including this last relapse, which was about 10 months ago. It really could have, I probably shouldn't be here talking to you.
Yeah, that's that feedback loop, in our brain. It's similarly, if we do something positive, right? So it's those little, when we talk about one day at a time, one little step at a time, be better tomorrow than you are today. Those are our little actions. Making our bed in the morning is closing the loop. And when we close the loop, our brain, the dopamine, the serotonin, the endorphins that release and flood our system, which are positive, that can create that positive feedback loop, right? We want more of it. And alcohol and drugs interrupts that system for us, and it provides a false sense of dopamine, and then we crash, and it interrupts our natural cycle. And before you know it, like to your point, we are being as efficient as we are, but seeking the wrong thing. And I think at a root level, we're not aware, so when you talk about your addiction, here's a question for you. Looking back on it, did you unravel your own career? Is that how you feel because of alcohol?
There was probably, yeah, I don't want to say I unraveled my career. I did give it everything that I could. Was I the most efficient that I possibly could towards the end? No, I was not. I was hurting not only mentally and emotionally, but I was hurting physically. Part of the discussion was drugs. I am lucky enough to be allergic to pretty much all painkillers, oxycodone and all of that. I would break out hives. I would get swelling, stuff like that. So thankfully, with my surgeries, I probably would have been addicted to those too. But towards the end, no, I was drinking to numb the pain, to try to even perform. And when it got to the point to where I couldn't even do that anymore, that's when I decided that was enough. And it ultimately, that decision to stop baseball not only was it not fun, but it wasn't fun because of what I had to do to prepare. I had to drink to prepare. And it wasn't just, taking a day off, throwing the bullpen, getting flush runs in, all of that stuff. It was, I had to drink, had to take some kind of medicine. I was taking Excedrin unhealthily. I was taking ibuprofen unhealthily just to feel somewhat normal, to get my arm through the zone. And it didn't happen. And it led to another surgery. And so I don't want to say it unraveled my career, but it did play a big part in it ending.
Yeah. Yeah. And what people don't realize as well is, especially people like us, we were young, we were high school picks. We forewent college, gave up that experience for a couple bucks and a signing bonus, and then the opportunity to play, but when baseball's over, when the game's over for us, I was identified by the game. When the Minnesota Twins released me and they said, Eric, just, you're done. I went and played some independent ball to try to hang on. I also had surgeries like you. And then when it was finally over, I remember thinking to myself, like, what the hell am I going to do? What was your moment like?
My moment was the exact same. I got done playing. The first time I contemplated it was in the recovery room after the last elbow surgery. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I've been playing baseball since I was 6. Like, I'm 27 years old and I got no college degree. I got nothing. And even then, like with the city still coming back from Katrina, I was in Pensacola, Florida, and I didn't even want to come home. So I stayed in Florida. What I ended up doing was did some lessons here and there, coached high school for a couple of seasons, which was fun, except for the parents. Parents were awful, couldn't stand them. And I got out of that, and I was lucky enough to run into a similar experienced guy. He was a Marine, and him and I met at a bar. We were chit-chatting and stuff like that, and he was he had signed up to go to first responder class, and then was going to go into the fire academy. And it was when I thought about it, it was the closest thing to a brotherhood that we had. When people ask me if I missed a game, yeah, I missed the game. I missed playing. It was amazing. But I miss sitting in the bullpen, sitting on each other's shoes and throwing seeds at one another, and going out after the game and BSing, and knowing that you got 24 other guys that got your back no matter what. And the fire department seemed like a great route for that. So I went to the fire academy and graduated. And after I graduated, shortly after, my dad got sick for the first time, and I moved back home to New Orleans to help my mom out and be there.
Are you sober at this time?
I am sober.
Okay.
I've been just over 10 months now, but I've had several years of sobriety.
No, I mean like during this transition period, because you were drinking a little bit. You were drinking while you're playing. Okay.
No, when I moved back home, I was not sober. Okay. And at that point, I was living by myself. I had my bottle of Seagram's next to the bed, so I didn't even have to get up. I just pour my glass and watch TV and stuff like that. But I was a functioning alcoholic. I was able to go to work. I was able to do my job effectively. I was able to get promoted, so forth. The changes came towards the 2015 time. So I moved back to New Orleans in 2009. I lived on St. Charles Avenue. I had a bar block and a half from me. I remember I set a record one year for the most money spent there in a calendar year. And that's an uptown bar in New Orleans that people go to all the time, but I was there daily. And that was actually almost therapy too, because it was the same people that showed up every day. It was that same brotherhood that everybody showed up at the same time. We'd bitch and complain about our day, and then you went home and you were usually okay. It wasn't until that got taken away from me in a certain way, and I was out on my own, and I had no other coping mechanism. my coping mechanism was drinking. That was the only way. And at that point in 2015, my mom and dad went into the hospital. My mom actually gave my dad a kidney. And I moved from New Orleans to a suburb of New Orleans. I got married during that time. And it was just a lot for me to handle. And I didn't know any other way. So the first time I actually went to rehab was in the fall of 2015, and that was voluntary because I recognized at this point I couldn't even get up out of bed without drinking something. Or I had drank enough the night before to where I was still kind of in a good shape, and usually the detox symptoms wouldn't hit me until about lunchtime, and then I would have to tough it out till 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon until I could make it home. So it was such a balance of just trying to get through a day. It was exhausting as all get out. Like, yeah, I told you that I was OCD. It was calculated planning on when I could drink and when I couldn't drink to even get through the day. And if that schedule got messed up, the anxiety came in, and it was, I had several anxiety attacks. And then, just like you said, you keep a tough exterior, but the inside, it duck on a pond, like on the surface, everything looks calm and collected, but your feet are going a mile a minute. I was dying inside, and it was to the point to where, people, if they take it one day at a time, I couldn't even go a minute without having 30 intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
And they were all over the place. It was, I'm going to die. No, I'm going to be okay. I need to go to the grocery. What do I need to get at the grocery? I'm going to die again. Like all of that happened in like 30 seconds. And somebody would walk by and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd be like, "I'm fine."
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing what's going on in my head.
Yeah. It's like asking one more question. We all go limp around this earth trying to keep our shoes clean. And let's say we're in the grocery store, and we're going through, we're getting everything checked out, and the cashier says, how's your day going? We all default to it's going great, but it only takes one person. And this is what motivates me every day, is to help other people, is like, what if you ask one more question that's tied to something different, right? So how's your day going? Oh, my day's going great. No, I mean, like, really, how's your day? How are you? How's your day really going? If you sit on that for a minute, it stings, because nobody's truly okay. And that's the adventure of life, is to make sense of all the chaos and all the tyranny that's going on in this world. Look what just happened in your hometown with the ex-military who killed 15 people, and he's military. And then we had the guy in Vegas who's also active military, U.S. born citizens, being radicalized. I mean, it happens to all of us, but specifically for your experiences, like, what was the moment for you where you could finally wave the white flag and say, like, I'm ready, like, I'm a different level of voluntarily going into seeking help, and I need change, I want change, and all that good stuff. Like, do you have a moment or two that really hit you?
Yeah, I do. We anybody who's been through rehab or gone to an AA meeting, or we all have the sayings and stuff like that. But the thing that really stuck to me was the obsession. Is the obsession still there, or is it not there? Going through all of the treatments that I went through and stuff like that, I would still fight in my own head. Is it there or is it not? And the thought of, I can still do it. Is this forever? I would fight with that all the time. I put myself in the hospital early last year. There was a lot going on in my life, and I did not do the right thing, where I had been sober for a little while, and I didn't reach out, and I made the choice of buying alcohol at that point. And it took probably like 4 or 5 days, and I put myself in the hospital. I had grade D tears of my esophagus from throwing up blood. Same thing. It happened. I was like, it'll go away. It was just a one-time thing. I filled up a garbage can, next to my bed, full of blood. I couldn't keep anything down. I went to the hospital, and I spent 8 days in the hospital trying to recuperate. And the thing that kind of stung the most, but actually helped me the most, is none of my family members came to visit. They knew I was there. They did help me by, watching my dog and stuff, but nobody came to visit me. Nobody actually called to check to see how I was doing, because they had had enough of me. They were done. And just laying there in a hospital bed, not being able to sleep, not being able to drink anything, it was being in constant pain. It was I'm alive, for one. I don't know why. And I need to do something different. And I had tried to do everything different before, and my own brain got in the way. I'm still strong enough to do this on my own. And you can't. So the first thing I did when I got out of the hospital was I reached out to a really good buddy of mine. I lived in a sober living facility for a little while. It's a house uptown New Orleans, great community. And I reached out to them. He was the manager of the house. And I said, hey, man, can I come back to my meeting on Friday? And we have a meeting every Friday. It's usually all men. And it's an unorganized AA meeting. You could talk about anything you want, but we still kind of follow, like AA format, so to speak. But we don't follow a topic. You can crosstalk, everything like that. It's basically a room where guys can be vulnerable and it can stay there. And it's not going to get out. And those men in that room are going to be there to help you. And when I showed up, I had lost 51 pounds. At the time. It was the first time I was under 200 pounds since I was 19 years old.
Wow.
And I was 43. And like, I looked like, I looked awful. And every time I went back and saw those guys and talked to them and stuff, I would just gradually get a little bit better. I was on a liquid diet for 6 weeks, where just drinking protein shakes and Ensure, and just the physical and mental pain that I went through during that time. I had lost visitation with my kids because of it. I had to admit to my ex-wife that I had relapsed, and then since then I've had to continue to prove myself that I am on the right path, and I do that by staying active in the community, still talking to those gentlemen at Imagine Recovery, the sober living facility. They have IOPs, and that community, and surprisingly, New Orleans being known for a drinking city, the recovery community here in New Orleans is very, very large. But in the same sense, it's very small. You're going to go to a meeting, you're going to see people that that you didn't know were alcoholics or drug addicts or anything like that. And you instantly feel love and connection with those people because you've seen them at the bars. You've seen them out drunk before. And now you're in the same place fighting the same battle. And there's that comfort level of, if you just are vulnerable enough to show up, you're going to see people and that sometimes scares people away from doing it. Like, I don't want people to see me struggling, where it's the complete opposite. You're going to show up, and you may have been drunk the day before. You may still be drunk, and they're going to welcome you back. Mm-hmm. And those guys at Imagine did that for me when I was at my lowest. And I was able to get through probably one of the scariest moments of my life, if not the scariest, because the reality set in that I'm going to lose my kids. I almost lost my life. I can't pay rent. I was almost about to get evicted. And luckily, my family, who I love dearly, helped me out to get through that bad time, and I'm indebted to them forever. And the only way I know, not just to be able to pay them back financially, but a living amends to them that they did not screw up by giving me help. I'm going to live out my sobriety and be sober for me to stay healthy and be there for my family, but also to show them appreciation for what they did for me in one of the lowest times of my life. 8 days in the hospital where you're only talking to the nurse that's coming to help you or stick you with a needle. It was a humbling experience, and to be that alone, it was something that I needed, even though I know my mom was probably, crying about it and wanted to come see me, but she had enough. And I don't blame her for it one bit. I would have left my ass there by myself too.
Yeah. I when I went to rehab, it's amazing. Our stories are very similar. I was in the hospital and then went to inpatient rehab, and it's interesting what you learn when you go away for a while. You learn more about yourself. You come to realize that you've had more conversations in your own head than you've had with anyone else in the world combined when you go away for a while, and then you also figure out who's in your corner. You also go put that phone away for 2 weeks. Here's a challenge. Put that phone away for 2 weeks and see who calls you, And now you don't have to be drunk to do that. You can just do that as a fun little experiment. But for people like us, if you're struggling out there and people go away for a while, it's not to say they don't love you, but they're, in a way, these are lessons learned, and when we're in those moments, that's if we can grab on to the realization of the reality in which we're living, we can change, and then you can find a new brotherhood, like we've got the Facebook group. It's a great brotherhood of all former pro guys, but in sobriety, we find new forms of healed brokenness, maybe is a way to think about it, or healing in the process of healing. And so addiction needs to be addressed with voluntarily, and you need to fill the void of what used to be the love of your life, that bottle or that needle, and replace it with community, with a goal, with an upwards aim, something sustainable over time. And what that means for the individual is completely up to you, but we can't go at this alone,
And I forget who brought it to me first, but it was either in a meeting or somebody speaking. And people talk about going to AA or going to Smart Recovery or whatever recovery method you're using, and they go, well, I don't have enough time. I don't have time to go to that meeting. And somebody brought it to my attention. It was like, how much time did you spend planning out how you were going to drink that day?
Meticulously, too.
Meticulously planning that out. 8 hours. Like, I was going to drink for 8 hours. Now, you're telling me you spent 8 hours of your day trying to figure out how you're going to drink and then putting it into action, but you can't go to a meeting for 1 hour, or you can't go on the phone away from the world, go on the phone and talk to your buddy that's in recovery for an hour. You have time. It's just got to be the decision that you have to make. I don't think you're ever going to force somebody that is in active addiction to go. Maybe you get them to go to a meeting. Maybe you could get them sober for a little while, but it has to be that person's decision to stay sober. Like, it can't be forced upon. But I agree with you 100% with the put your phone away. There's a lot of empty talk with people like, oh, I'll be there for you. Just call me. Go away for 2 weeks and see who texts you and says, hey man, I haven't heard from you in a week. You doing okay? Those are the kind of people that you need to surround yourself with. Those are the kind of people that are going to be there for you. I don't think I could go 36 hours without calling my mom before she's, hey, I haven't heard from you. I know my mom's going to be in my corner. There's some of the guys in the brotherhood. There's a couple of twins that I got drafted with. One of them in particular. We send each other, stupid memes on Facebook and Instagram like we're still 19. And like, I think if I went without responding to him for a day or two, he would be like, hey man, you okay?
Yeah.
So the brotherhood has helped me out listening to people's stories, reading people's stories on Facebook, where somebody actually gets vulnerable and says something about their inactive addiction, or they struggled with active addiction and are making better choices now. It has definitely been a privilege to be a part of that group. And again, have lifelong friends from baseball that I know would be there for me if I called them and said, "Hey man, I'm in trouble." Not just the outside stuff like financially and stuff. I'd be, like mentally like, "Hey man, I'm thinking I'm going to be doing something stupid." And usually that's enough to get you past that addiction trigger or that addiction idea of just picking up the phone and calling somebody or sending a stupid meme or just doing something to trick your brain into thinking that you don't need to go down that road again. So it is, I'm just thankful that I have found that. But I will say that recovery is kind of like dating in the sense that you have to go try a whole bunch of things until you find something that works. But you're not going to find it until you try it. And I unfortunately took a long time to try a lot of things. And I finally found what kind of we like to call around here, I found my tribe. Like I found my group of people that I know that if I call, they'll be like, "Yeah, come on over," or "I'm on my way." And luckily, I've gotten past that pride and ego stage of thinking I could do it on my own, because it's not possible. And I want to surround myself with more people that are in that space or need help to get to that space, because our pride of when we took the mound, like we're going to beat this guy one-on-one. I'm going to beat you. Same thing with addiction. One-on-one, I'm going to beat you. And legit, you're going to lose every time.
Yeah. And that mound, interestingly, can be likened to the desert in the Old Testament. It's lonely. It's a lonely place. It's chaos on the mound, even though we try to construct some sort of control, but once we release the ball, it's out of our hands, Godspeed in a way. So control the controllables, but as pitchers specifically, baseball is a team sport, but it's highly individualized as well, especially for a pitcher. So we're used to doing things ourselves. We're used to finding the solution ourselves. And a lot of us are alpha, or at least we think we are. I used to think I was alpha, and boy, was I wrong when I started going through therapy. I thought I was some future CEO of a big company, and it's like, man, you lean. Once I found out my personality traits, my big five, my whole life slowed down in addiction, because I realized like, oh, that's why I don't like that middle-aged finger pointing Catholic Republican, like who's pointing his finger at me like, jump, little Eric, but it's awareness, and you learn more about yourself through the community. Which I think is most important. I mean, it's important for everybody, but us males, we don't like to talk. We think we can handle it ourselves. We can change our own brakes all the time, but it only takes one time to change a brake the wrong way, and you're dead. So it's like, we need help. We need support. We need to surround ourselves with people that are wiser than we are, might be a way to think about it, because if we are who we surround ourselves with, fundamentally. And I've learned quite a bit. I mean, what are some takeaways that you've learned now that you're on the other side of this and you're doing well, you're a father? Like, what are some key through the help of psychologists, or did you see psychologists?
So I used to,
Okay.
I don't anymore because of the price for mental health is very expensive. And I do pay, I got a lot of debt from the divorce. I have a lot of debt from, just continually paying child support, stuff like that. Paycheck to paycheck is the epitome of the way I live right now. But I'm okay with that. I mean, that's the situation I put myself in. I've accepted it, control what I can control, can't control the bills. The bills are going to keep coming. So I actually work 2 jobs now. But one of the things, as you mentioned, is that since 2022, since my divorce and since I've been active in the recovery community, I've lost 7 really good friends that were in the program that relapsed and didn't make it out. And those are just the people that were close to me. Some of them were fentanyl overdoses, accidental or suicidal. Nobody will ever know. And then one of the most recent ones was a baseball player that I grew up with. When I went to his wake, there were people that I saw their coaches that I hadn't seen in 35 years. You know, since I was 9 years old, I hadn't seen some of these coaches. And then some teammates that I haven't spoken with. And 2 of those guys, one of them committed suicide that I played with growing up. And then the other one, either accidentally OD'd or OD'd on purpose. And I don't know. So like reaching out, like I wish they would have reached out to me, you know, and again, I'm sure that pride came in. The gentleman that just recently passed away, he was 3 years sober. He was active in the community and just doing things with AA, doing things with the Bridge House. And then my mom even asked this question, like, what in his head clicked that said, go do this again. This is the right. He said, it happens to everybody at any point. You can't, if you could, I was like, Mom, if you could figure it out, you'd be a billionaire because you'd save every addict out there. But the connection to that recovery community is so key, because when that switch does go off, it could be the last time. And I've heard this in recovery too, is like, I have another drunk in me. I don't know if I have another recovery in me. I really do believe that if I were to ever relapse again, I don't think I would survive it. So,
here's why, because we think so when we drink quite a bit, our tolerance goes up, right? And then we quit drinking for X amount of time. We relapse. I've been in this boat. We relapse and we think that our tolerance is still up here, and it's not.
It's not.
And then before you know it, boom, we're dead.
I think I would go to sleep and I wouldn't wake up. So I don't want to test that water. I've worked very hard. One of the things that I do continue to do is I actually have a alcohol machine that I keep with me at all times. One of the founders of the Sober Living facility monitors my results. So I take about 6 to 8 tests a day. About every 3 hours, I take a test, and it gets reported to that. Not only does it get reported to that, it gets reported to my ex-wife, to continue to build this trust of that I broke completely, you know, that nobody can trust me on what I say anymore because I was so manipulative and what I needed to get done. I'm trying to build that trust again, but the only way to do that is to stay sober. And at least this gives me a benchmark of saying, like, look at how long I've done this. I prove it, and I'm okay continuing to pay for this service because I want to prove to everybody that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing to stay sober.
Is that program called Soberlink?
Soberlink.
Yes, yep. Man. You know, like for anybody listening or watching this, let's stick on this for a moment. This is important. So my wife left, 2 young daughters, right? And that's it. Let's just put that over here because that's a convoluted, there's borderline personality disorder on her side. There's lawsuit threatening and there's a lot that contributed, you know, to me drinking, right? It's my choice and nobody forced me to do it. But for anybody to say that like it's the addict and the addict alone is looking at it too narrowly, you know, because there are external forces upon us that we can't identify, that we can't smell, that we can't see, that we're unaware of, that are influencing our choices, right? And for me, I couldn't handle it. I quite simply wasn't man enough. And so I started drinking, right? It was on me. But exactly what you did, my attorney called me and said, look, I heard of this Soberlink thing. It's regulated by the courts. It's regulated by uh, by all the divorce attorneys and the community of accountability. But I voluntarily put myself on that for 2 years to build trust again. So if anybody out there is struggling and looking, because alcohol is legal, there's stores on every, depending on what state you live in too, man, you can just pop up into a grocery store and buy yourself a fit. No problem, no sweat, but Soberlink, can you talk a little bit more to that? Because I was on it for 2 years. I was blowing 3 times a day. I put it on, I voluntarily started blowing into that. And I think Soberlink saved my life, plain and simple.
So, yeah, I had to do it when I was living in a sober facility. I had to do it. It was mandated. I had to do it 3 times a day, and they gave me a time frame. When I left, the times that I had to do it were just when I had the kids. So the addiction part of it came in as in, like, I could drink a few days before that, it'd be out of my system, and then I could test and blow zeros. It wasn't until I came out of the hospital this past February that I went, I'm going to do this not only to build trust again, but I need it because this is going to keep me accountable to myself. I know that if I blow anything but zeros, the court's going to find out about it. My ex-wife's going to find out about it. The sober community that I'm part of is going to know that I'm relapsing. And I just wanted to keep that accountability part for myself. And I actually try to test every 3 hours. I have no set time on when I do it. I just have gotten to the point to where if I wake up in the middle of the night, I take a test. And it's Bluetooth activated for anybody that's watching. It's Bluetooth activated. You hook it through an app on your phone. When you blow into it, it actually takes a picture of your face. So you can't even get anybody else to do the test for you or try to fake it. There is some, obviously, you could drink little bits in between if, like, you wanted to take that chance. But I've
You're
read all of
wrestling with the devil, though. If you do that, you're wrestling with the devil.
I've read all of the documents and court cases of people that use this, and that was the exact same thing. It's like somebody that has a problem with alcohol would not be able to do this, would not be able to drink little bits in between testing. And I've made it a point to try to test every 3 hours because that proves that there is no possible way I am drinking anywhere in between this. And again, I'm voluntarily doing this. It keeps me accountable. It gives me a track record of my progress. I think I gave the report to my ex-wife the other day. I did 233 tests in the month of December. So break that down over 31 days. I think it was 8 tests a day or 7 tests a day. And it's become, and what's actually funny about it is mentally, I'll blow into this thing and I'm still scared. Still scared that something else is going to show up. Knowing good and well, I have no alcohol. I haven't bought alcohol in over 10 months. I'm still scared. Like, there's still that nervousness that I blow into this thing and I'm waiting on the results to come back on my phone. And I go, what? It's zeros. And I'm like, but knowing I'm completely clean, it's a crazy feeling, but I'm not saying it saved my life, but it certainly, if anything were to change, since I've set such a standard of what I'm doing, if anything were to change, it would be such a trigger for anybody to, like the lawyers, my ex-wife, to go, what's going on? Like, you've got to be drinking again. And it would be a problem. So Soberlink has been a great, and it's not that expensive. And considering how much you spent on alcohol in a course of a month, it's pennies compared to what we spent. So I'm glad
it's
to
nothing.
have it.
Yeah, and it's small too.
Yeah,
it's a small little device.
Yeah, so you can keep it in your pocket if you need it.
Yeah, you can just stick it in the middle console of your car, and it's quiet too, so you can pop into a public restroom, and blow for 3 seconds, and then it clicks. You hear that little click noise, and you're good. But I saved my own life. You saved your own life by taking action. You took action. I took action, and we're able to sit here together today and share our story and help inspire others because of action. Prayer without action does nothing for anybody, you know? And so it's about the action. It's about the community. It's about reestablishing trust with those that love us, you know, whether in various forms of love, you know, life's about love and life's about sacrifice. That's also biblical, you know, and like Carl Jung runs through it. He goes, what you need most is where you least want to look.
I like that.
What you need most is you'll find what you need most where you least want to look, you know, and that is running not away from, but to, because we cannot bend the fabric of reality without it snapping back on our life in our face at some point in time. And that's Jordan Peterson. You know, when you hear these wise people speak and you read them and you watch what they do and listen to what they say, we grow, you know, and you're growing. Like I'm growing. We're all growing just by having this conversation.
Yeah, I took away a lot. I used to, I still do, listen to AA speakers or TED Talks on YouTube. And I listened to a speaker one time. He was explaining how he used the values of recovery into his normal everyday life and became a CEO of a company. And it is basic values of practice rigorous authenticity, do uncomfortable work, and surrender the outcome. And if we are truly authentic and we do uncomfortable things, like look for help when we're in the least place we're going to look for it, and we become vulnerable, we tell the truth, and then once it, just like throwing a baseball, once it comes out of our mouth, we can't control what comes back. If the person's going to get mad, if the person's going to be upset, if we're authentic to ourselves, we can live with that and move forward. I've done, you know, over the course of my active addiction, I've manipulated the truth. I've not told the truth. I have bent the truth. I have not flat out lied. But going through the recovery process, it is a blueprint of how you should live. You should be honest with everybody. You should be your authentic self. You should do uncomfortable things to get out of your own way. And you should trust the outcome and accept what's going to come back to you, knowing that you've done, like we talked about, you cleaned your side of the street. I've done my part. I've done the next right thing. And whatever comes back, I'm going to accept it. And in my current position right now where I'm working, I've never done that to the extent that I am now. When I get asked an uncomfortable question, say about finance, where I'm talking to one of the, you know, chief financial officers, and I know that's an answer that she's not going to like, I tell her the truth, as opposed to kind of like bending what I'm saying and stuff. I tell her the truth, and then she either goes, you know, Scott, you need to do better, or thank you for telling me this. Let's work on it together and get it better. It's just a much better way of living. And as addicts, we didn't do that. We weren't authentic. We were lying the entire time, whether it would just be drinking without telling somebody that we're drinking, or trying to hide it, or actively lying like, hey, I'm going to go to the grocery store, when actually you're going just to grab a bottle of alcohol, drink it, and then come back. It was a constant lie. And luckily I'm getting to the point now to where when I'm saying something to people that I did lie to, they're believing, or at least I hope they're believing, because I'm doing my best that I can. And the only way that I can accept that is if they are still not believing me, it is because of what I've done to them and hurt them. All I can do is live my life the best way I can, and then hope that in the future they will start believing me and seeing the work that I'm doing, seeing how I'm putting myself out there, and not only helping myself, but being a better dad, being a better friend, being a co-parent, you know, to my ex-wife, supporting in every way that I can, being there for my mom, who's I lost my dad a couple of years ago, being there for my mom when I can, and just uh, it's humbling, it's emotional, uh, but it's the only way that I know how to continue, because, like we said, I don't think I have another recovery in me. I think this is it. So I'm going to make it count. I want to see my kids graduate. I don't want to see my daughter walk down the aisle because I don't want any guy anywhere near her, especially somebody like us. But we have two amazing kids, and I'm slowly getting more chances to be in their life because of the work that I'm doing and the fact that I am becoming more trustworthy and showing that I can stay sober, but I'm still having to put my sobriety first. If I'm not good, I can't be good for anybody else. And it's a kind of a selfish way of thinking, but it's really not. It is do the next right thing, which is stay sober, stay connected to your community. And then you could be good for everybody else. You could do things like this. Like I could talk to you, without having to go drink to talk to you. You know, it's very humbling.
Yeah, you said everything right there. That was so well said. That was so well said, because that's what this podcast is about. The intrinsic values, living for yourself first, right? Not chasing the trophy, not chasing the proverbial paycheck, not accepting, not seeking the acceptance of others to feel full inside. You know, it's putting the mask on ourselves first when the plane's going down, because in turn, that's the only way that we can be there for our children, for anybody who's in our life, is to take care of ourselves first. You know, that's intrinsically motivated, which is sustainable over time, you know, and telling the truth. You know, I think that you mentioned something that I now hold dear to my day-to-day thought process and with intention, is telling the truth and cause no harm, you know, and being good, not being nice. Being good means that you also have the ability to cause harm, you know, and by no means am I saying cause harm at all. It's having, if we are good, we can also be bad, because a lot of people nowadays want to be nice and they're fluffy with it, which is a superficial type term, right? But good is comprehensive. Good means you're not afraid to make tough decisions, that you have a backbone to you, that you have clarity of thought, you gain self-awareness, and you have purpose and value that you can articulate in the world, you know, for the good. And I love what you just said, Scott. And I'm so happy that you came on this podcast, and I'm excited to build our relationship together, and be there for one another. And in turn, I hope some folks watching and listening to this had a few nuggets to take away from. We're always here for you guys, like anybody. You know, this is a brotherhood, whether it be you're a high performer, whether that be through athletics, or you're in recovery, or you're just going through some shit and you need some help. You know, we are here for you. That's what this is about. So, Scott, thank you. Any last words at all?
I will say the same thing. I will reiterate that the first step is just saying something, reaching out and saying, I am having a hard time. I am struggling. But it has to come from you. You know, you have to make the decision that you know that you're not in the right spot. And it is a tough decision to make, and it's a tough thing to say out loud. But once you say it out loud, it becomes real. And once it becomes real, that's when somebody can actually be meaningful and help you going forward, because we will try, as former athletes and definitely as males, we will try to hide it in any way we can. But once you say it out loud, it becomes real. Anybody that's been in our position, like your arm's hurting, you're struggling through that, it's not real until you tell the trainer, my elbow's hurt. Then it becomes a problem. But you can get to it. Just say it out loud. Reach out. I know, direct message me I'm in the Facebook group. I will answer because I'm OCD. I can't allow notifications on my phone to stay there, so I will respond to you. Uh, it is it is it's amazing once you say it out loud and once you get there. The recovery community is so large, and they'll be there for you. You just have to find your tribe, and you're not going to find it till you start reaching out. And I'll be there with you, Eric. I hope this relationship does grow, and we could bounce ideas off of each other on what we're going through because our stories are so similar. And I agree. Do the right thing. Do the good thing. Don't do the nice thing. The nice thing will cover something up, and the nice thing you can manipulate. Doing the good thing and doing the right thing, you can't manipulate. It is truth. So do the next right thing, and hopefully this does help somebody. Because even if we just reach one person, I think this is a successful podcast.
Agreed. And Scott, on that note, brother, it's been fun.
It's been great.
And to all those watching, listening, until next time, take care, everybody. See ya.